Welcome back, everybody. This is Night Flight, and as you can see, Tyler Kiwala is back. And our topic for today will be the United States after the Charlie Kirk assassination. Yeah, Tyler, welcome back. Thank you so much for taking your time. And I have to say, this entire situation is very confusing for me. Starting with a rifle, that we didn't see when he was jumping down the roof, that he allegedly disassembled and they found the screwdriver on the roof, but then the gun was reassembled in a tree line.
Right.
So, with what screwdriver to the Amazon book that I found very creepy to George Zinn, the first suspect that was also a witness at 9/11, that was a witness to the Boston Marathon bombing. Then we had the senator talking about the FBI operation Arctic Frost. I forgot his name. I'm sorry about that. And Arctic Frost allegedly also targeted Turning Point USA. And of course, we have the new footage in HD where it looks as if something happened under his shirt. What exactly that was, I don't know. So, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's to me, it's pretty obvious that things aren't adding up. And I think if you can like detach yourself emotionally and zoom out and looked at everything objectively and just look at it with through a clear lens and detach any belief that you have surrounding what happened. I mean, there's no way that I think anyone can look at it objectively and not have questions. And it's very confusing because Carrie Cassidy put it best. They're faking reality. That's the way she said it. They're faking reality. And like, why? To what end? How would they do that? And, there's a million questions that come to mind whenever you look at something like this. That is a trigger event, a timeline trigger event, if you want to call it that, because it's proving to be a catalyst for the United States right now. And Charlie Kirk has been used as a martyr. And there's this huge, pardon me, excuse me, there's this huge movement right now. It's sparked a huge movement in a positive way for a lot of people. But I would say for the people that don't understand the levels, the depth of this shadow war, the spiritual war, the lengths that these people will go to, the agendas behind it, to what end, all that stuff. So there's so many things we have to consider. And the more you look into this, the crazier it gets and the crazier you sound trying to talk about it.
Yeah,
Because there's a million different things that you can speculate. Excuse me.
yeah, definitely. But I think, in general, it is the old American story. Lincoln and the lone gunman, JFK and the lone gunman, Charlie Kirk and the lone gunman. Seriously, guys, can't you mix it up a little bit?
Right. Yeah, it's like don't fix it if it's not broken. Like they know the proven methods, what works. And in this case, like it might even be there's the dark side, for lack of a better term, has been behind a lot of the agendas for a long time. But then this could be what they call like a white hat operation, meaning there might be a positive agenda behind it, even though um, there's some people argue there's nothing positive about deceiving the masses, right? But we never know what they have up their sleeve, and maybe there's technologies involved that we just don't understand. And I do believe that's the case. And, there's what they call looking glass technology or timeline viewing technologies that allow people in the private sector to basically view timelines and probabilities and possibilities and basically run scenarios to see which one will have the most desired outcome and impact on the collective for whatever it is that they're trying to do, trying to accomplish. So if we imagine that there was some form of think tank where they're storyboarding out our reality, trying to figure out, okay, what is going to have the most impact if they're trying to push a positive agenda even? How are we going to wake the most people up? They're going to run all these scenarios. And then I think that like there's probably a number of possibilities laid out on the table, but then they ultimately decide that this one would be the most beneficial for whatever reason, or beneficial to them. That doesn't mean it's going to be beneficial for humanity, or it could be. So we have to, look at this just subjectively. How would this look? How would they even pull it off? Then you have to bring in the possibilities of clones and body doubles and masks and different. Like, I don't even know. This sounds crazier and crazier. Like, how did they pull this stunt off? And there's way too many anomalies. There's way too many things that don't add up for it to just be some random one-off thing. And the more you look into it, it seems to be coordinated as if it was on the schedule. Like they were way too prepared for it, and everything went so smoothly down to the funeral, the ceremony. I mean, this whole thing they just had in Phoenix, Arizona, and all the symbolism within that, and it went too perfectly. So to me, this seemed like something that had been on the schedule and it had been planned, and maybe even somehow Charlie Kirk was approached and he knew that this was going to happen too. As crazy as all that sounds, we have to consider it because we don't want to take away from the fact that if this was a real death and there's a family that lost, a husband and a father, and, there's a lot of broken hearts surrounding this. And we don't want to take away from that if that was what happened. But whenever you really look at it, and we know how these puppet masters pull the strings in this reality, they've done this before with a number of people. So what makes it any different now? Everyone has no problem saying, "Oh, Elvis is alive, Michael Jackson's still alive, JFK Jr. is still alive." All these things. Princess Diana. They have no problem because it happened so long ago. But when it happens right now, some people see through it and they're like, no, he's still alive. Like this isn't right. Something's off. And maybe he's not still alive. When you question it in real time, that's when people point the fingers at you and say you're just being cold-hearted and all this stuff. But you have to detach yourself emotionally from this type of stuff, I think. And um, because we're all just trying to figure it out. We none of us really know. We're trying to figure it out. But when we come to these wild conclusions, you have to just consider that, I know this isn't going to be the popular opinion, but I should share it anyway to offer a new perspective because other people might not be seeing clearly because they rely on your emotional knee-jerk reaction. So a lot of people lack emotional intelligence, meaning that they emotionally react without having the ability to sit with that event and process it and actually work through those emotions and come at it from a healthy perspective. Everyone wants it to be a certain way because it made them feel a certain way. But that doesn't mean that's the truth. The truth doesn't care about your emotions, right? And that sounds cold-hearted as well, but it's the truth because it doesn't matter what you want something to be or what you don't want it to be. If that's not the case, you have to be able to disconnect from that and say, okay, what's actually happening? So, I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but this is just kind of the way I view like events like this, not just Charlie Kirk.
Yeah. With the body double, yeah, let's say hypothetically, of course, this is just speculation because at the end of the day, we don't know. Um,
Right.
the problem that I have there, from everything that I have seen, Charlie Kirk seemed to enjoy his family life very much, which means that would be the end of it. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
he cannot just go out, with his kids, with his wife, go for a walk, for a hike, go to restaurants, cafes, what have you, to the beach, and not be recognized. Not now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, there's that, obviously. But there's a lot of weird discrepancies even within his family life. People have done digs on his wife, Erica, and like her connections and it's like, okay, who like it almost seems like this family was like put together and kind of steered into each other's lives, maybe for a bigger agenda. And we can't rule that out. We know that happens with the elites and the royal family, and they want certain people to marry certain people, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That happens. It's a reality. Happens in other countries too. It's tradition sometimes. A lot of these people are getting married to people they don't even want to be married to, but that's the hand they were dealt. Not saying that's the case for Charlie, but these things do happen. So there's people picking apart the video of his wife saying it doesn't look like his wife, her big speech where it looks like it could potentially been AI, like done by AI. People are like putting side by side comparisons, like in the one that her speech, her earlobe is connected in real life, it's not. Like there's just some weird things. So if I mean, it's like they're like Carrie Cassidy said, they're faking reality. To what end? There's some bigger agenda behind it, and we can only speculate on what that is. And a lot of people have a lot of theories, and some feel like they could be right, but at the end of the day, we simply don't know. And yeah, if he was a family person, then of course that would be tragic and for everybody involved. But if let's just say he did go into some sort of witness protection, maybe he's still with his family. And there's a show out there on Netflix called The Pentaverate. I don't know if you heard of it with Michael Myers. The whole show is about how they fake people's deaths in the public eye, and then they go and live out their lives in these secret societies or these underground civilizations or whatever. It's supposed to be a comedy, but there's a lot of disclosure in it, and they basically show you in the show how they do this, and they'll even approach the person who is supposed to die and they'll show him the newspaper article of this is what we're going to run on Tuesday after you die, right? And at that point, you are no longer this person. You have to go live out a new life, whatever in this secret society. Not, these are just kind of the types of things I like to consider and at least look at whenever because you have to. When like you laid it out perfectly at the beginning, nothing added up. But the gun, the shooter, like all the shirt, like there looked like maybe even the bullet came from behind, and that camera behind him might even have been a gun, which we know there's cameras that look like or guns that look like cameras. It seemed
And
to
they
be
removed it before the feds were there. So I
right.
would say that is crime scene tampering.
It is, and I think that was done on purpose. It's almost like somebody got the order, okay, create as much chaos as possible once this happens, and just start scrambling, grabbing stuff. In real time, no one's going to catch on to all that, right? And by the time it's done, when you review the footage, then it doesn't matter. But, that's when we start asking questions. But they did what they needed to do. And, you can only speculate, like I said. But why would they do that unless they wanted to push a specific narrative about what happened? And by tampering with the evidence, it it takes away the ability to actually send in like a CSI unit, a crime scene investigation unit, and figure out what really happened because everything's been tampered with. And that gives them a free pass to create whatever story that they want.
Hmm. Um, yeah, this what do you make of this movie Snake Eye?
So that's another thing. So that was what, like 20 years ago or something, and
Hmm.
very down to the specific name and date and everything. It seems to be like, if you want to call it foreshadowing, like you would do in a movie or a book, that it's like foreshadowing. Like you can almost like they're telling you, but how would they pull that off? How would they know so far in advance? And how would they play it out? How would they act it out and make it look like a real event, without having crisis actors involved, which you already talked about the crisis actors. I mean, that's we know that exist because they show up at a lot of the same major timeline trigger events. You know, the Boston bombing, the Vegas shooting, January 6th, like they're like the same people are being interviewed and crying and selling that to the public and to the news, and people see that and like, oh my gosh, these poor people. I'm like, well, how is this same person at every every major, tragic event? They're getting paid to do that. And
Mm.
there's evidence even behind that. There absolutely is evidence that, these, for lack of a better term, flyers go out online that are looking for crisis actors.
Yeah,
And
you
they
can
pay.
rent them. There are websites.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's all there, but whenever you try to put these puzzle pieces together and tell somebody like this is what's happening, that he really didn't die organically, uh, then people have a problem with that because we're talking about the death of a soul of a human, right? And of course, like we don't want to like downplay anything that might have actually happened to somebody, of anybody who was hurt or killed or injured in any situation that we research. We're researchers. Like this is what I chose to do for a living. Like break down this stuff, see through the illusion, ask questions, question the authority, question the narrative, the script, whatever. And sometimes that makes you the bad guy in someone else's eyes because you're questioning something that they fundamentally believe in. And that's actually their problem. That's not our problem, right? It's up to them to ask themselves why they're so triggered whenever we present other possibilities, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and then comes Pam Bondi and talks about there is free speech and then there is hate speech. And if anything, I mean, whatever Charlie Kirk was about was certainly not about condoning, yeah, now we label this one here hate speech, hate speech. That's not even, there is not even a legal definition for that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he definitely, well, they're setting it up as that he got killed for his beliefs, right?
Mm,
And that, I mean, that's what they want us to think. Same with Martin Luther King. I mean, this has happened before, right? It's a playbook and it works. And it doesn't even matter if it doesn't work. Whenever enough people believe in it and they're in on it and they maybe they're even blackmailed into positions to like, hey, listen, if you don't follow the script, then you're not, whatever, you're not with us anymore and they'll take you out or whatever that looks like. So, I mean, as far as the free speech, hate speech, and all that stuff, I mean, those seem like politically charged agendas, and they know that people are going to grab onto that, and it's going to start a whole thing online, and it just creates further division and ultimately confusion. And when people are confused, you can easily play a trick on them if they're not seeing clearly. So you don't know where the deception actually lies because you're so confused and nothing adds up. But that's when you know if it's not adding up, you are being deceived. And it doesn't matter where the deception lies, just know that something's off about it and trust your gut feeling.
yeah. Um, so there is one thing that I noticed recently. I will briefly share my screen. Um, so, Eugene Weekly, are you triggered? As the Trump administration attacks trans people, some queer folks are armed and ready to bash back. Um, yeah, I'm not so sure
That
what we.
is that is that is definitely a politically charged agenda. Like, so they of course they have to attach something like this to the death. I mean, they're gonna, excuse me.
Yeah, this is from June. So that was before he was, but I have to ask you a question. Obviously, I'm not living in the United States. So it says here, as Trump attacks trans people, or rather his administration. To my best knowledge, I have never heard that a trans person was arrested simply because it was a trans person. So, what exactly is the attack? Is it just rhetorical? Is it where do they come from?
Well, we know that, okay, if you're going right and left-wing politics, the left-wing Democrats, they've been pro-trans, pro the I've never even seen that queer resistance. That's interesting. They're pro the LGBTQ plus movement, right? Which I believe is a very parasitic movement, and I think there's a lot of mind control and mutilation, gender mutilation, especially young kids and stuff. And these, for lack of a better term, termed demons, that have been pulling the strings for a long time, they're going to play victim to anything that happens, and they're going to try to make Trump look like the bad guy. So if this is their baby, they fully believe in this trans movement because um, whatever reason that they believe in this and they want to keep pushing that agenda, they're obviously going to try to get all of their people that have already taken that bait to believe that Trump is attacking that movement. So it's all politically charged and it creates further division and it gives them an excuse to go after Trump. And it gives them, they want to create these activists. And so these people go out and protest. And some people do very, very stupid things just because something on their TV told them not to like Trump or somebody, just like what we see happening with the Tylenol right now. I don't know if you saw, Trump came out and talking about the vaccines and Tylenol during pregnancy could lead to autism. Well, there's this TikTok trend where these liberal women were
Yeah,
basically taking Tylenol while they were pregnant. And one girl actually overdosed on it. And there's a whole story on that. And so Trump had to come out and make another statement. So people are just doing things out of anger because they don't like someone and they're not thinking logically. And that's because they've been brainwashed in these movements like the LGBTQ, and they've been manipulated into believing that they are, the only way they can fit in is if they change their physical appearance and they don't belong or whatever. It's all confusion, and they're gonna take advantage of they're opportunists, so they're gonna take advantage of a situation like this, obviously to make it look like Trump is attacking that movement by literally after the Charlie Kirk thing, they said that there was like trans symbols or markings etched into the gun. I'm
uh-huh.
like, come on, like how much of a stretch? Like that is so obviously somebody setting the stage for something like this, some sort of a narrative.
Yeah.
These things that they're very, very strategic about what they report on. They want us to see certain things because that's what they want us to believe, and they want to push that. If they don't want us to know about all this stuff, we just don't hear about it.
Mm. And what you can clearly see here, there seems to be some type of, yeah, armed queers will assemble in Salt Lake City on September 27th. And of course, you have the communist signs here with the red star, with the sickle and the hammer. And
Right.
yeah, so you exactly know where this is actually coming from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they even have that little bird at the bottom that kind of reminds me of that some Nazi eagle or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, are you familiar with Jeffree Star? Do you know who that is?
Yeah, I do actually. He cracks me up, and he's a very unique voice in this movement.
Mhm.
I will say that
Yeah.
because he has, he's kind of like the OG influencer, right? He's been doing it for a long time, but he seems to be gaining a lot of traction lately. And that's because, well, he's a man that dresses like a woman, but he's not trans, right? He actually
Mm.
speaks against that. So he's like this anomaly, but he's set himself up, put himself in this position that kind of gives him a free pass to do that because he takes on that identity, but he doesn't attach himself to that identity. He knows who he is fundamentally, but he's still like, I don't know, he's a very interesting character. Why did you ask?
Yeah, because I saw some videos after the Charlie Kirk shooting, and when he came out and said, "You guys celebrating this, that is so bizarre and disgusting. You are a they-them loser." And he said, "You will always be what you have been born. You're either male or female. How is this even a discussion?" But when you look at him, with the pink hair, the very, very long nails, and tons of makeup, he also has a makeup company. You might think at first glance that he probably is a non-binary person.
Right.
And but then he speaks completely against it. And I found that actually very interesting. And he got a lot of flack for that.
Of course. It's almost like his higher self chose this exact role because that's the type of person it'll take to make a difference. People might listen to him as opposed to me or somebody who's just straight and male, not, and just kind of sees through that stuff. But somebody who's like this weird anomaly of a person who's like I said earlier, it just seems like he has a better chance at being heard than somebody like me or somebody else who would try to speak out against that stuff.
We had another very interesting, yeah, I don't even know what to call it. To me, it was mass hysteria with the so-called rapture.
Oh yeah,
That that was supposed to happen. That here this week on the 23rd and the 24th. And I have seen this one clip where somebody goes, she drags her suitcase and a bag, and then she goes to the beach and she says this is probably the best place to wait for the rapture. And then she shows what she has packed. Um, she brought her inline skates so that it's not getting boring. Hair products for African hair, her special body lotion, and on and on it goes. And I thought, I looked at that, and I couldn't, I think she was genuine, she meant it, but it could have also been satire. You're sitting there
right.
and thinking, what is this? Is this satire or do you mean that? And and I thought, yeah, well, actually, when you go to heaven, yeah, yeah, if we accept that premise, then
Right.
what are you going to do with body lotion there?
Exactly. So that's such an interesting thing because it wasn't even on my radar that this was supposed to happen. And I feel like whenever things don't make it into my awareness, I feel like there's not they're not based in truth. I feel like if I'm meant to pay attention to something, then I will be guided, divinely guided to look into that. And the fact that it never showed up on my radar until after it happened, like I didn't see anything on social media or anything, it just tells me that it wasn't organic. Like there was a pastor that said he told his people there's a 1 billion% chance that the rapture was going to happen. And the fact that there was so many people that actually believed in it is concerning and kind of embarrassing for humanity because like that just shows you how many people are still in that savior complex
Mhm.
mentality, that savior complex programming, that are looking to be saved by somebody else and being convinced that they can't do it themselves and giving their power away to something outside of them. I mean, that's ultimately what this is all about. So the fact that I see these people taking it so seriously to the point where they're quitting their jobs and getting rid of their pets and like actually fundamentally believe that they're no longer going to be here on this planet after the following day, that's concerning. And that means that there's something going on that we need to reflect on. And I hope that all the people that did fall for that and took that bait, I hope it's a catalyst for them to start questioning things and looking at themselves a little harder. And, instead of just waiting for their pastor to tell them, oh, make up some excuse and backpedal and then give them a new narrative to grab onto because that's all they got unless they want to look in the mirror and face themselves and that's not easy.
Yeah, I have seen a couple of apology videos. I have seen that, but not too many. Um, a lot have quietly moved the goalpost.
Right,
So that now somebody came up and said, "Yeah, we have been looking at this completely wrong. We should have used the Julian calendar instead of the calendar that we have, yada, yada, yada." So now we end up with another date. And I'm not saying it wasn't a subject here, but very, very limited pocketed
right,
pockets. And not to the extent that it was hyped in your country.
right,
Um, and yeah, okay, South Africa, that is where this pastor was from. They also had very bizarre scenes when they all climbed this mountain by the hundreds and started yelling at the sky.
hmm,
So, but what is that? Why is it always in the United States? I can't put my finger on that. Why it always goes overboard? I mean, people sold their cars, some sold their houses, gave away their savings, what they had in the accounts. Some of them quit their jobs. Some of them did all of those things together, which means the next day you are in an existential crisis.
right,
Plus, the very thing that you wholeheartedly believed did not happen, which adds another layer of a spiritual crisis,
right,
probably.
right. I mean, sometimes for people to change, you gotta hit rock bottom, and it seems like, this all could have been a blessing in disguise for everybody, because now, like, it forces them to rethink their entire life and everything that their pastor was telling them, everything they believed in, and maybe it'll inevitably put them on a higher path that's more spiritual, right? Instead of religious, I guess you could say, because there's a difference. And I don't know why the United States is like where everybody goes overboard here. That's just kind of like the theme here. We like to overindulge in everything, food, drinking. I mean, you name it, TV. It's like we just take it to the next level for no reason. But it's also because we're being mind controlled very heavily and it's thrown in our face and they're putting stuff in the food that makes and just social media, they make us addicted to things, but somehow they just have a formula over here that works to their negative agenda, and everyone takes things overboard here. And I think it's just like programmed into our culture. So like we can kind of go all in sometimes, if especially if you're not really self-aware and you're not feeling into this stuff, it's easy to give your power away to things like that. And I think on a zoomed out perspective, I think a lot of other countries are watch the United States to see what we're doing, see what's happening over here, not just the movements on the ground level, but in the political arena as well. A lot of people, there's a lot of eyes on what happens here, so they can take advantage of that and push certain things that maybe seem like it's only meant for the United States, but it might even be meant for a global, purpose, right?
Hmm. This is a little bit, yeah, let's say fringe, this question, but could you imagine that there these two things, the Charlie Kirk assassination and the push for rapture, are loosely connected.
Absolutely. I think everything's connected.
Mm.
I think everything's connected. And maybe it's not as successful as, they storyboarded it, but it's still on some level, if they're even affecting a percentage of the people that they wanted to, I don't know if that's a win for them or not, but it does still it does impact people. And I would not rule out the fact that they could be connected, although I haven't even considered that until just now. So I can't really, I don't have much to say about that.
Hmm. Yeah, so some people are speculating there will be an attack on free speech now. And I mean, it is not something that is completely new, especially during the COVID years. My goodness,
Right,
what was going on there? I know that I lost my channel almost twice. I'm still highly shadow banned.
right,
Uh, and all that has its roots in that time
right.
frame. So, um,
Well, we just got our channel back,
oh,
our big YouTube channel that they took down during COVID. We just got it back like 2 days ago, and they reinstated it because they came out and said Google to reinstate YouTube accounts banned for quote unquote repeated violations of COVID-19 content. And we were one of the lucky ones so far to get our channel back, and all our old videos, all our old subscribers, our big following, that we worked so hard for. So that would be, to me, that's tangible evidence that they're giving us free speech back and not attacking it. Unless they're planning on giving everybody this stuff back and then pulling the rug out from under us again and really attacking us. I guess that's possible, but um, I think they've been to pretend like they're gonna attack free speech as if that's a new thing. It's kind of silly. It's already been. We've never had a real voice. And in fact, the evidence would show otherwise that there's more freedom now than ever, especially in the United States, to share. There's shadow banning and stuff like that. But when I get on social media, the things I'm seeing now that are being allowed that just simply weren't during COVID and before that, I mean, to me, it's progress. It all sounds crazy for somebody just getting into this and they might not know what to believe, but that feed is looking a lot different, and you're seeing a lot more opinions, and it's not so strict and rigid like it once was, and there's more freedom to say things that before you would have been banned for. That doesn't mean there's still not shadow banning because they absolutely are. I mean, we're still experiencing it in some areas, and a number of people are, and there's not everyone has gotten their channel back. So it's kind of like this dance, I don't really know. I think it kind of depends on the situation and who you are and what you're talking about.
yeah, I heard that Nick Fuentes got his channel back, but only for 12 hours. And then it was gone again. So a very weird story, but I don't know who he is. I have never listened to him, but I guess in the United States he's very well known.
Yeah, so I don't know about that, but I did wonder that, like, are they just gonna take our channel back like right away? Because I feel like there's like these AI algorithms that basically they just take your channel and it's like they run it through this machine, right? And then it just spots, it picks out all of the trigger words and everything you're not supposed to talk about, and then they just automatically send you a copyright strike or whatever. I don't even think there's humans involved, which is the issue, which is the issue, right? Because people are wrongfully losing their channels and getting videos striked and banned because this AI is just picking it up whenever it's not even like they're picking up the most ridiculous, silly things they'll give people strikes for. And I think you got to take the power out away from the AI because you cannot, I don't care who you are, it is virtually impossible to reach out to YouTube and talk to a person. You just can't. You're dealing with robots 100% of the time. You get as much, we've had 5 channels removed. We got them all back. They gave us not just one back, all of them. We just put all the other ones on private. But in all these years of trying to appeal and ask questions, you don't get to talk to a human being. There are no people involved, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
And that's a scary thing.
yeah. Although I remember they made a video about that, um, where they said, yes, the strike is AI, and then when you appeal, real persons will look at the issue. But my experience is that the answer usually comes so fast that w I would say, when did you even look at the issue, and when did you
Right.
even think about it?
Yeah, it's like, oh, we've reviewed your content and we agree, or we say we, whatever. We've determined it does or doesn't go against community guidelines. Like, really? Already? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
I understand what you mean.
yeah. Yeah. And that is exactly the reason why whenever they take something down, I don't even write back or ask for a review or whatever. Why would I?
Right. I mean, it's worked out for us in the past. Like we've appealed things and gotten stuff brought. They like put the video back, but sometimes, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they don't. But in a rare case, sometimes they'll give it back to you.
Hmm.
So it's not always it's worth it, I guess, worth trying.
Yeah. So would you say that how is the mood in general in the United States? Do you have the feeling people think it's a new beginning, or yeah, we can turn this thing around, and we can get rid of all the nonsense, and or is it more like a little bit disappointed? I, when before we were recording, I mentioned that I saw a couple of videos from people who moved into storage facilities,
Right.
and the other part was that where people actually having good jobs, um, not even minimum wage jobs, and couldn't get by.
Right. I mean, I would say that the overall mood is really hard to determine because
Okay.
it depends on where you live, what state you're in, if it's a red or blue state, what kind of programming is being pushed there. It's all the real things to consider. So I travel a lot and I see a lot of different things, and I see a lot of people still wearing the COVID mask and stuff, which is surprising. So I don't even know what they're talking about on the TV, on the news. It makes them still scared of it. But there's a number of people that are still wearing their mask and stuff. So that's concerning. That's interesting. I think in large, a lot of the pro-Trump people are very, I guess they have a very positive outlook on what's happening because they understand what's going on, and they believed in the Charlie Kirk thing, and they think it created this very positive movement. It's like you strike me down, I'll become stronger than you can ever imagine type of Star Wars reference. I feel like that's kind of the mentality for that whole group of people. And then you have the group of people that think it's all conspiracy theory, and then it's still the cabals in charge and the deep state. It's so convoluted. At the end of the day, I think even trying to dive too deep into any of it, it's just ultimately a distraction because we're all being tested right now. Like they're gauging the reaction of the collective consciousness and the individual consciousness and how people are responding to these situations. And I think ultimately we're just in a transitional phase on this planet, and it's going to be messy for a while because you have all these different people from all walks of life and all different belief systems, all now suddenly being put in the same room, and nothing fits because everything is being forced to come to the surface, and it looks different for everybody and depending on where you're at. So then I think it's specific to the individual whether your future is positive or not. Because if you're giving your power away to these agendas and you're falling for this stuff still, and you're still living in that fear programming, then you probably don't have the brightest future because you're going to still take the bait, hook, line, and sinker. But anyone who sees through that and have has the ability or the humility to self-correct when they're wrong, and the ability to have to basically process these events and not just emotionally react, like I said earlier, and then just to be self-aware enough to understand, like, okay, I'm not giving my power away to that. Why did I respond that way? And sit with it and process that, and then move forward that way. I feel like you create your own reality at that point, and you can manifest very beautiful things in this world whenever you have detached yourself from any expected outcome and you're just living present and in the moment. And I think that's the answer, really, to moving forward during these tumultuous times where nobody knows what to believe. Uh, don't believe in anything but yourself, and just know yourself fundamentally. Know your body, know your soul, and how to navigate these times depends entirely on that and how much you know yourself.
Yeah. So there is nothing where you would say, yeah, in California, the mood is a little bit upbeat and Minnesota is a little bit going down the drain. So it's,
I mean, I would say that's true. Like it just depends on where you are, and you know, it's so hard to gauge too because not a lot of people in real life, people aren't talking about this stuff. Life isn't what you see on social media.
mm,
It's just simply not, you know? When you go outside and you interact with people, it's like it's all nothing's changed. People are people and they all want the best for humanity. We love our neighbors, everyone treats each other with respect. You're not like, yeah, you'll run into the assholes out there, but ultimately, like, it's a very beautiful place when um you just remove the programming and the social media and the television and you just look around. I'm like, that's reality. That's what's important in your life. It's specific to you because that's where you have chosen to live. That's where you are. And maybe you're living in a bad neighborhood. This isn't the best example, but you know what I'm trying to say.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. So there have been for a while actually speculations around, what is that called? Oh my goodness, my brain. Um, it has a number attached to it, 2025. It has to do with Trump. It has to do with the people behind Trump, and it has to do with the Catholic Church. But I can't, for the life of me, I can't remember there has also been several books written, and in one of those books, J.D. Vance had um, he wrote the not a foreword, something else that is on the back of the book. And so there were very dark speculations that, at the end of the day, these people have the impression that the United States will sooner or later go down the road of the Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. I mean, I don't actually know if I'm not sure if I know what you're talking about, the 2025 thing. Maybe I do, but I just, if I heard the name, it might trigger something. So I don't have much to say on that. Um, and I think it really just how things look and how you think things are going to play out all depends on where you're at
Yeah.
individually, like I said. And like I mean, here's the thing. So many things are changing, you can't keep up with it. Like we have literal cars that are driving themselves now and picking people up, like robotic cars. I've witnessed them here. They pick people up from the airport, you get in the back of it, it drops you off. It's self-driving cars, right? I mean, what that just showed up, like it's here. Like things are changing that is so fast that people don't even have a chance to respond to it, you know? And no one's voting on this stuff. It just shows up in our reality. However it ends up there, that's probably all happening hidden in some bill somewhere that was signed years ago or whatever. And we're none the wiser. Um, so it can appear very dark if you have like this AI takeover. AI is really at the forefront. A lot of people are fearing it. A lot of people are loving it. I don't think there's any way around it. I think it's just on how you use it or how you choose to not use it. I mean, it's all specific to, what you give your energy to. Um, it can be scary if you look around and see all that stuff and you don't really have an understanding that there is a great awakening happening and there's a lot of disclosure occurring within all this, and it's really expanding the consciousness of everybody, even though it might seem like very negative stuff. There's still a major consciousness expansion happening right now. A lot of these children that are being born right now are being born online. They're remembering past lives. They have these abilities. They're way smarter than we were, like these high IQs. I mean, they're being born into a world that's unrecognizable from a world we were born into. And I think that really it's going to be up to them. And there's just no going back to the way things were. It's going to constantly adapt and change. And and I think that looking at the kids now, I would say if the kids are any indicator of what's happening on this planet, they're not going to fall for the same stuff we did because they're way too smart for it. And they're going to create a whole new way. And we're literally at the end of days of a dying system. And this is what the collapse looks like. It's being systematically dismantled, but it looks like chaos. And the machine always consumes itself at the end of an era. And what we do with that is up to us.
Yeah. And as usual, when I stop thinking about it, it comes back to me. It's called Project 2025.
Okay. I don't know much about that.
Okay, here it says, am I sharing? No. Huh?
No.
No. Okay. So it says here, do you want me to share?
Yeah, if you want, I'll look at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, sorry. Little bit confused today. Okay. So it says here, Project 2025 is a political initiative published in April 2023 by the Heritage Foundation, an American conservative think tank to reshape the federal government of the United States and consolidate executive power in favor of right-wing politics. And then you have here Project 2025 Tracker. What is the implementation? And then here it says it proposes banning pornography, removing legal protections against anti-LGBT discrimination, and ending diversity, equity, and inclusion, yada, yada, yada. And it goes on and on and on. And if you then go deeper into this entire subject, then certain people that are connected with the Heritage Foundation and the Catholic Church, all that will come up. And that is the reason why there are some people that think, yeah, well, we are probably going down the road of the handmaid's tale. That is what they expect.
Right.
I'm not saying it's true.
Right. But it could be true for them
Mm,
because that's the reality that they're believing in. Like it really comes down to that. Because if you don't put energy into that, it's not even going to impact your life in any way, shape, or form. It's just not. It's the people that invest in those movements and they believe that's reality, then that is reality for them. It really depends on where you're putting your attention, and your focus.
Mm. Yeah. Have you ever seen The Handmaid's Tale?
No.
No. Um, yeah, in that TV series, it came very sudden. It was like in the morning, everything was yeah, fine. It was as usual, and in the evening, you were no longer allowed as a woman to work. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. See, I definitely don't think, I guess I didn't know what that meant. So I definitely don't think that's going to happen, but I don't rule anything out. I don't feel that's happening. In fact, I see a lot of evidence that some positive change is happening behind the scenes. Like I said, it may not look like it, but it's a dying system, and there's no way
mm,
to do it perfectly because it's such a mess. You're not going to be liked by anyone or everyone whenever you make certain moves, but maybe there's a higher reason behind it that we just don't understand.
mm,
The fact that I don't think we're just going to wake up and suddenly all of our rights are stripped and this and that. I mean, we kind of experienced that with COVID, but it didn't last, and now people won't fall for that again. And the people that do, that's on them. I genuinely think that we're in a place now where um, that something like that just can't happen to the extent that they
mm,
want it to. Maybe it can to a certain extent in limited areas, um, depending on where you live or whatever the case is. But I don't think the only way it'll work is if you fuel it and you believe in it. When you
mm,
take your power back, they lose. You take the power back. And they're not the ones in control. We are.
mm. Yeah, your word in God's ear. When I look around here in my country, I sometimes think if they pull that again, they will march and, and gobble it up hook, line, and sinker. Yeah,
Maybe, sometimes I might even be overly optimistic about things, but it's so hard for me to sit here and tell you like whether or not something's going to happen, because I just don't know. I'm just giving you my opinion based on what I see and what I've experienced, and I could be completely wrong, and I'm willing to be wrong if that's the case, because uh, then there's something for me to learn.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes when, as I said, I would wish, I really wish I'm wrong about this, but when it comes to the Germans, I do not have a lot of hope.
Yeah, see, you're in a different country, so you're speaking from a whole different experience than I am.
Mm.
And so that's again where it depends on where you live, where you're located, and I mean, whatever your government is doing. So it's not just, I mean, yeah, it is happening in the United States and everybody's watching us, but it doesn't mean that every country is going to follow and it's going to happen differently for everybody. So I genuinely don't know how to answer that truthfully, besides be, just be honest and say, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, and it is not possible to know everything. So you would say we have there is a light at the end of the tunnel that is not the incoming train.
Yes, that's what I would say. But
Mm,
you have to know yourself to be able to see it.
mm,
Because if you don't, if your identity is still attached to something outside of you or something that they're telling you, that's going to be, it's not going to be visible to you. Quite literally, it won't be. Um, and we can get into like parasite cleanses and stuff like that, but like that stuff all plays a role. Once you start cleaning up your body and start seeing clearly, you see an entirely different reality than the person next to you who is drinking the Kool-Aid, for lack of a better term.
yeah, yeah, that has been a problem during the COVID years, especially, and that is why at a certain point I started living like a hermit. I
Hmm.
was just, I had no longer any interest in friction and, um, explaining it again and again, even the most obvious things, um, because it didn't make sense. It felt, even within my family, it felt as if you're talking to a wall.
Right.
And then I stopped talking.
And in some cases, you are talking to a wall,
Yeah.
and it's not our job to wake people up.
No.
We can present the information and it's up to them what they do with it. I used to think that everyone needed to know what I was learning, especially early on. I'm like, oh my God, you start discovering the truth about this reality. Like, oh my God, everybody needs to know this. We're being poisoned. They're lying to us, all this stuff. And you start getting on Facebook and you start sharing this stuff, and all your family and friends who aren't seeing that, they just think you're nuts, right?
Yeah.
And then I really went out of my way to try and help some people see, and it actually just burned bridges. And I was like, oh, and then I had to realize, wow, like that's their path, that's their karma. Like it's not my responsibility to interfere with that. That's their journey, and there's lessons in that for them that they came here to learn. So it's not even up to me. If anybody is interested in what I have to say, I feel like if they're on that path, they'll find me. They'll find what I'm saying because our voice carries a frequency, right? The truth carries a frequency, and other people on that path will be drawn to that.
Yeah.
And the people that aren't ready for it quite literally won't hear you. And if you try to get through to them, you're talking to a brick wall, like you said.
Hmm. Yeah, and especially in in my generation, that's a whole different story. I'm 67 now. Yeah. In a couple of months I will be 68. So, um, wow. And I have to say, yeah, I can't talk about those things with most people. It's as if I know they grew up here. I know we have been through the same schools, the same decades. I know. And yet they look at me as if I have green slime coming out of my nose.
Right. I get it. I get it. Yeah. Unfortunately, just not everyone's there, but there are pockets that are waking up, like where I live in Sedona now. Um, it's amazing because people are finding each other and people are congregating to areas like this where there's like-minded people to the point where it starts like the more people that come here, it just affects the grid and it keeps growing and growing. So when you live in that type of a community, which I call like a pocket reality, because it does seem
Mm,
like a different reality from other places, uh, it's so hard to have a reference point. But I travel a lot, so I know. But once you're surrounded by that, I think it's encouraging because you see it growing and expanding constantly. More and more people show up, more people come here. They bring that energy back home, and that creates that a ripple effect, right? And it might be on such a subtle subconscious level, but it does have an impact, whether you understand it or not. So, I mean, it's it's a slow process, and I think there's going to be waves and pockets of people that, kind of have these awakenings before other parts of the world. And that's just inevitable just because of the way things are and the way this planet has been set up, the infrastructure. It's a grid. It's a battery. And we're being used as a power source. And when people realize that they can use that power to impact humanity in a positive sense, then we'll start seeing a change.
mm, yeah. So our hour is gone. I had a very weird experience a couple of like half an hour ago. I almost I thought this is weird. I had the impression time was going backward.
It probably was. I mean, that's a whole other thing we could talk about is time anomalies. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had 20 minutes of missing time just the other day somewhere,
Mm.
and it was a whole weird thing where the clock in my car was 20 minutes off from my phone, and I didn't remember that portion of the drive. You've heard those stories. What happened, And you gotta scratch your head like, what, how, what? You don't, it doesn't make sense, but these things happen because we have tons of testimonial evidence of that.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe that is a good topic for our next talk, Tyler, if you're willing to come back.
Of course, yeah, you ask good, hard questions. I like it.
Okay, so yeah, guys, that was it. Night flight for today. And I see if I can get back my time.
Right.
Until next time. Bye bye.